Alright, I feel like I need to start doing a video diary of sorts, just about the interesting life that I have. So it is 5:49 a.m. on December 9th. I've been up for, I don't know, I guess I've been up since like 4:30 a.m. So I am on a very, and I kind of always have been, but I feel like it's kind of intensifying. I'm on a very profound spiritual path. All my life, I have been about knowing God and understanding God. And originally, that context was through Christianity. And Christianity was my introduction to God. Excuse me. And anyway, long story short, for sake of time on the video, I've studied all religions, all mainstream religions, and a good deal of other spiritualities in a survey form. I'm not going to say like I have comprehensive knowledge of, smaller spiritual contexts that aren't mainstream. But I've learned how the smaller spiritualities have lended to even things in our Bible, the Christian Bible. And I'm about to go over like a case in point for that. But I want to talk about something really interesting. I've been going like really, really deep, praying, meditating, and I feel like I'm kind of like on the cusp of good things finally happening for my life. I'm not going to go into backstory. Let's just say I'm almost 44. My life has been mostly bad, destructive, and traumatized. Okay, so, but I'm in this place where it feels like things might actually look up. Like, maybe, but maybe not. So, I don't know, but, I'm just kind of in a gray area of hope, so to speak, hoping that things are going to turn around for me and that I can actually come to a place where I'm financially secure. And when I say financially secure, I'm not talking like having a retirement. Like, I just want to be able to pay my rent for more than a month at a time. And still have groceries. So, anyway, I have had a lot of very bizarre and unusual, horrible things happen to me, especially since 2017. Like 2017 up until now, like this is 2022, like it has literally been a crisis nearly every month. If it's not every month, then it's at least once per quarter. And that's been a lot. And it's not something that I can talk about because, number one, nobody's really going to believe that bad stuff can happen to one person that frequently and then them see that person on social media regularly, which I typically am, because it kind of makes it look like you've got one timeline going on social media where you're smiling and talking about how much you love your cat and your cousin, right? But what people don't understand is maybe during one of those videos I was being evicted, or someone in my life had died, or one of my best friends, who I thought was a best friend, stole from me and from my cousin. So it's like the social media highlight reel, right? It obscures and it hides the other timelines that are going on behind the scenes that you can't really tell anyone because they're not going to understand. And if they don't understand, they may not believe you either because it seems really unbelievable. So I kind of come to a breaking point about 3 weeks ago, and I just started praying. I'm like, okay, look, God, here's the deal. You obviously don't want to help me, because if you did, you would have by now. And obviously it is a matter of your will. You just don't want to, because if you are omnipotent, then that tells me that you have absolutely the power to do it. You just don't want to do it. And at this point, there is no lesson in my life that is so valuable that it has to come at the cost of the quality of my life. And it shouldn't have to come at the cost of my mental health, because I have faced down some pretty nasty mental health demons. And I mean that literally. At this point, I can say it's literal. So I just prayed, and I was like, God, you know what? Here's the deal. You're not offering me any help, but you are absolutely requiring me to be alone, with the exception of my cousin, in the arena with what feels like really strong demonic forces. And I am being ripped to shreds, in spite of trying to do everything right, in spite of, trying to keep a good attitude, in spite of staying in counseling, and, just trying to do everything I know to do as far as I can control my own self. And so I'm like, okay, God, here's the deal. If you're not going to help me, then I at least want you to tell me, to show me why am I going through the volume of hardship, the volume of frequent traumas that I am. If I'm to stand in this arena and be torn apart every day of my life over these years since 2017, I deserve to see what I'm up against. If this is a demon, I am to a point now where I have been through so much, I'm not afraid of anything anymore. Like, I have no fear. I've faced death more than a few times in my life and in the lives of my family. I have, I've filed bankruptcy. I've experienced health crisis. Like, I've experienced, near homelessness. If it were not for my cousin, I would have been homeless. So, like, like, I don't have any fear anymore. So if this is some big, bad, ugly demon, and I'm fairly certain that it is, and I don't think it's like one of the small demons. I honestly feel like it, it's obviously sort of some kind of an entity or entities with rank. And so if you're going to force me into this situation and not offer me any help, but expect me to fight, then I want to see who it is. That's the least you can do. So it was less than a week later, I had a dream, and this was probably like 4 a.m, I guess. And in this dream, I was dead. I was in a morgue. And my body was dead and my spirit had already separated from my body. I had already come out of my body, but I was still hovering above my body. So I could see, it's like I was looking down on my body. And I understood that my body was dead, that my life was now a separate entity from my body. And so I remember it being really bright, and I could see you just see when you're dead, like when you see your body when you're dead, you realize, like, and I don't mean this necessarily negative, but you see how pathetic the body is, because once the life force leaves, like the girl that was working on me in the morgue, isn't this a crazy dream? But this is just like a run-of-the-mill dream for me. The girl that was getting ready to work on me in the morgue, she needed my body to slide down the table. And I knew, because I was dead and not in my body, that I could not, like, scooch down for her. Like, she was going to have to bear the entire dead weight of my body to scoot me down the table to get me where she needed me to be. And I remember feeling very ashamed that I couldn't help her move my body down the table. And I remember thinking, the human body, for all its glory and for all its intricacies and beauty and fascination and undiscovered frontiers even inside of our bodies, when it's all said and done and this breath is gone and this identity is gone, it's worthless. It's weak, So I guess on that note, I'm just saying, if you're amongst the living, be thankful. Anyway, so, and I remember, like, in times past, probably like before now, that would have been a dream that would have just freaked me out. I would have woke up, I'd been like, all right, I'm not going back to sleep. Gonna go ahead and get my day started. But like I said, I'm to this place where I just don't feel fear anymore. And so I wasn't afraid. I was more curious. And so she scooted my body down the table, and things got really bright, and I woke up. So I am awake, and I'm laying here in my bed, and I'm kind of mulling over the imagery of the dream and thinking, wow, people usually say, if you fall in the dream and then you die, like you actually die or whatever. And I was like, I really actually was dead. There was no life in my body in that dream. And so I was thinking about, the interpretation of it or whatever. And all of a sudden I had a vision. Was awake. Keep this in mind. And so in this vision, a face emerged from the black. And it was bronze. And it looked like my face, but maybe like a more masculine version of my face. And it looked metallic. Like I said, it was bronze in color and it was metallic. And it was the left side of the face, my face, or whatever this face was more visible than the right side. The right side was still kind of obscured by shadow. And it just emerged where I could see it. And then I heard the name Abaddon, the destroyer. And I knew in that instant, okay, that's who I'm up against. I'm really not surprised. I knew it was probably a big one. And so I started praying, and I'm like, all right, so this is who I'm up against. Nobody beats Abaddon. Like, there's nothing in my spiritual arsenal. Abaddon is death. And, I just had that dream that I was dead. And I'm like, so at this point, I'm like, okay, so does this now mean it was pointless for me to pray to know who I was up against? Because clearly, this entity is one that always wins in the end. Okay, if you are familiar with Christianity, Judaism, I'm not sure about Islam. I'm not sure how Abaddon is presented or if he's presented in Islam, but because there's so many similarities. But if you're familiar with Abaddon, Apollyon, as the Bible also says for the Greek of his name, you understand that there's a few different ways that Abaddon is presented throughout the history from Old Testament all the way to Revelation in the Bible. So first, you get this sense that Abaddon is a place, like a grave. And then as the Bible progresses, you understand that Abaddon is not just a location, but is also known as the angel of the abyss. And in some accounts, he is called like the locust king. He is the destroyer. He brings plagues. And as you research about Abaddon, you will find that he's kind of a controversial figure in that he is considered the death angel by some and is sent by God, I guess, like the Grim Reaper, so to speak. And so he kind of seems like a double agent, in other words. So it's like he's working for God, but he's also the locust king. He is the destroyer. He is, the representation of death and destruction. And so there's this idea that he's a double agent, and you really, just by researching, you probably will not find a solid place to land on whether he is good or bad, whether he is for God or for the darker forces, because it kind of seems like both at different times. So, as I was praying, I was receiving revelation about Abaddon. And it was this. Yes, this is what you're up against. And it is not so much a matter of beating him. You'll never beat him. But what you do need to do is get more aligned with your purpose so that you can be moved out of his way. A couple nights ago, I did a YouTube video with a wonderful, precious friend of mine, Ronisha Lachey, and she and I were talking about the importance of following your path, following your own unique individual path, following your purpose, regardless of what that looks like to anyone. Understanding that even though you may wear many hats, a mom, a wife, a father, a brother, a sibling, a boss, an employee, a business owner, okay, we have all those layers, yes. And all those things have paths. You're going to have a path as a parent. You're going to have a certain path you have to take as an entrepreneur. You're going to have a certain path that you have to take as a sibling. Okay? But every person has a unique path, a life journey that you came into this world to do. If you do not do that, it's not that you will be punished. It is that your life will be so out of alignment that you will experience a lot of hardship. And those hardships are meant to serve as like bumpers along your path, so that as you start to get off the path, they create a sense of pressure to get you back on the path. So what my problem is I have been in a state of people pleasing my whole entire life. I'm going to be 44 in March, and I have been such an obligate people pleaser, and that I've been willing to be that, even if it meant negating my survival. Okay, as long as I could not be pressured by someone, keep people comfortable in who they are and what they're about without ever revealing the reality of who I am as a deep individual, as a thinking individual, as a person who cannot be selectively identified. And by that I mean you can't know me personally and be like, oh, she's a conservative, oh, she's a liberal, oh, she's this or she's that. Like, I blur the lines in every arena. I'm a little bit of everything, and I can't help it because it's who I am. It is my ontology. It is my nature. I think about the Apostle Paul, how he said he had become all things to all people. And I find that to be very true in my life. But up until now, I've become all things to all people in order that I might make sure that they receive all the things that they need. But that's never been how it was supposed to be. And I even recently discovered it's not even supposed to be that way just so I can be more relatable. That's not even the purpose of being all things to all people. Now, for Paul, I understand, that probably was at least part of the case for his journey, okay, is to make him more relatable, to give him a certain degree of credibility whenever he is presenting his message about Jesus. But me being all things to all people ended up not being about relatable, but about being and bringing them all things, serving them in all ways with all that I am. And so it's really led to a great deal of sickness and being out of alignment and not getting to enjoy why I'm here, okay? I basically substituted my own happiness for that of others and called it my happiness. And that's led to a lot of the destruction that I have faced over the years. So, okay, how do I find my way back from that? It's like 6:13 a.m. So anyway, I knew that I had to really start getting about the business of being my authentic self, letting people hear my heart, hear my voice on some of the unusual, mystical experiences that I have on the regular. And the experiences that I have cannot be confined within a conservative Christian context, because that's not the only lens with which the experiences can be understood. Okay, so I just want to talk about and this has all happened just like within the last week and a half. So I'm like, okay, here's where I'm at. This is what I'm up against. And so, I've been thinking on what does that mean and trying to get more aligned with my purpose. Hence the reason I have fired back up my YouTube channel, and hence the reason I'm releasing a book, my first book. Hence the reason that I am halfway through my second book, cranking stuff out. Hence the reason I am opening up a whole lot of other businesses apart from just real estate. And because all of these things are the authentic expression of who I am. And it's not authentic expression for the sake of expressing. It is getting me into a place where I am aligned and out of the way of the destroyer, but to fulfill my purpose, to fulfill, and try to at least attempt to make up for the time that I've lost on this planet doing everything but what I'm supposed to be doing, and that is relaying my mystical experiences, letting people learn from those experiences, allowing it to come and make people uncomfortable, to wake people up to the realities that if you're looking at life through one lens, you are not seeing the spectrum of reality. And if you're not seeing the spectrum of reality, you're not living your life to the fullest. Anyway, I can articulate that better when I'm more awake and the day is a little bit more underway. But, as it is, and at this hour, that's kind of where I'm at. That's the gist of it. I need to live my purpose, and I need to be able to be happy. I need to be able to serve myself, meet my needs, and expect the people in my life to take ownership over their own happiness and not look to me as a source of happiness or a source of comfort or as a Novocaine for their pain, okay? I have been through a lot of pain. And it is not my purpose to keep people from their pain. And that's what I've tried to do all my life. I've tried to do it with my mother, my brother, one of my brothers. Just there's a lot of arenas where I try to act as a Novocaine of sorts. And that's not why I'm here. But that does not mean that I'm not going to be an instrument in relieving suffering, okay? But I have to do that in the way that is most authentic to me. I have to teach others. My purpose is to teach others that pain and healing, light and darkness, are two sides of the same coin. And that you have to step outside the confines of how you have been societally conditioned, religiously conditioned, culturally conditioned, because you cannot understand your own ontology, the essence of your own reality, if you only have one little fragment piece of reality as a whole, okay? As humans, we are very complex. We are multi-layered. And just like I was saying in that social media video, about social media, you can see me on Facebook, and if you look back, through 2017, you'll see that I have sometimes voiced my sorrow through poetry, and then through sometimes just outright, being negative and dark and being like, life sucks, pray for me, it's like that kind of stuff. But I had so much more going on that nobody knew about or could know about or would even believe me. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's like this. If you've ever been around someone who you can tell they're an exaggerator, they over exaggerate, they fluff things that just shouldn't be fluffed. Maybe they'll give you ask them a question and they give you such a detailed answer, you just kind of feel like they're lying or they're over exaggerating. That's kind of like what my life has been like. Like, you could never ask me, hey, how are you? I could literally only say, fine, thanks, how are you? Because anything other than that would have had to have been so detailed, it would have come across as, okay, you know what I mean? So it's like, just save it, because nobody's gonna believe you anyway. So I have been very reserved and probably will continue to be reserved going forward. Just because it's a lot and people have a hard time once they think they have you figured out. When they see these other dimensions of you, then it makes them feel shaky, like, okay, well, who actually is this person? Like, people have a hard time, and I think it's because of like social media and the mainstream media. We get a snapshot of a person and we assume that snapshot is an accurate summarization of who they are as a person, what they go through on a daily basis. And that's deceptive. That is very, very deceptive. And that happens not because the subject person is being deceptive. It happens because that's just how people are. You know what I mean? There's this saying, like, always be nice to people because you never know what someone's going through. And so that's kind of what this is like. It's like, life is so much more than just the one-dimensional layer of a snapshot of a social media reel or of a social media post or of, a news headline or, there's always, and there always will be, more than meets the eye. And that goes for every single person. I know we get political figures on mainstream media and everybody gets up in arms. We demonize one, we exalt the other, when at the end of the day, they're both the same. The person that's exalted has been the villain in the stories of other people, and the person who is being demonized has been the hero in other people's stories. So it would behoove us to approach people with the understanding that we are equal parts light and dark, and to expect more or less is a shadowy aspect of ourselves. Okay, maybe your bent is to expect the worst from people most of the time. Okay, that is a shadow aspect of yourself. Now, on the other side of that, you have someone in your life and they carry a certain vibration. Let's just say they have a very high vibration, okay? And you feel so good in their presence. But you need to understand, if you expect that person to not have any scandalous points about their lives, to be a figurehead of, or a figure of like purity, or being a very pious person, Okay, that's a characteristic of that person. That is a characteristic of that person. But if you build up an expectation around someone and you expect them to be mostly light, that is also a shadowy aspect of you. That is an indication that you are uncomfortable with darkness, that you don't know what to do with it, you're overwhelmed by it, and so you disown it. You disown it in yourself, even though it's always present, and then you demonize it in other people, even though it's absolutely normal, okay? So, and that's kind of goes to what I'm doing with my second book. It's about being equal parts dark and light. Just because someone carries a high vibration, let's just say they're a spiritual teacher, okay? Or they're a guru, or they're a preacher, or, whatever their background may be. It is a shadowy thing on the part of the people who have adoration for that teacher, for that leader, to put that person under the obligation of being obligately pure, okay? I don't care who you are. Every person on this planet has aspects of sexuality, whether they ever express them, explore them, dive into them, whatever. Every person has free will. Every person has the ability to lie. Every person has even like psychology even says, like, you don't even have to be a deceiving kind of a person, a deceptive kind of a person who is a liar or an exaggerator. But psychology shows, and if we're really honest with ourselves, this is true. Every single person tells at least 2 lies every day, whether it's to themselves or other people. And that could just be in the form of, hey, how are you feeling today? I'm good, thanks. What about you? Okay, you just lied. But why did you lie? You lied because you understood that to say anything more than that would be inappropriate and heavy for the expectation of that exchange, okay? You lied because you knew this person is simply trying to greet me, not get into a therapy session, right? Okay, so that's what I'm trying to say. We are equal parts dark and light. If Jesus Christ is your Savior, then you need to rest assured that He can handle those dark parts and that you are redeemed, regardless of what those dark parts look like. And your dark parts are no less black, sinful as someone else's, just because someone else's darkness is different than your own, okay? And I've seen this so classically, like with gossips. My gosh. Gossips are really bad about that. Gossips have a tendency to, number one, they don't know, I think, a lot of times that they're gossiping. Sometimes they do. But they don't understand that their gossip, that they're casting shade on other people, is every bit as ugly, because what they're doing is they're seeking to undermine that which they don't understand. And that is every bit as atrocious as someone who beats their spouse or someone who takes the Lord's name in vain, okay? Sin is sin, wrong is wrong, ugly is ugly. Doesn't matter what body that emanates from, okay? It doesn't matter that just because you do it and maybe you had a better intention, it doesn't mean that it's okay for you and not them, okay? All right. So, I really didn't anticipate this video going in this direction, but here we are, 40 minutes in. So, what I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to wrap up because I do want to share one final thing before I close this. I am going to post this on my YouTube, and I have said from the beginning, I am not looking to be one of those In other words, like, I'm going to be authentically me. I'm going to be as vulnerable as I possibly can. And that means coming to the camera without, makeup, without trying to look like an Instagram model just so I can make sure my message can carry some weight, okay? What I have to say is important regardless of my appearance, regardless of the fact that I've been, laying here asleep with my sweet little cat beside me and I got these big bags under my eyes. Truth is truth, regardless of the body and the body's appearance. So, anyway, that's another fear that I've eradicated from my life. I don't really care. So, said all that to lead to this. So, as I was waking up, I thought, I can tell that I'm kind of wired awake, and I'm going to have to like pop some Benadryl and just kind of be still and, try to get sleepy again, fall back to sleep. And I think what I'm going to do is write some poetry because I'm feeling kind of poetic. So as I opened up my Google Docs, I started writing. In the dark of the night, in the cold of the grave, dampness has hidden me, absorbed the shockwave. As I lie in dream state, I have angelic visions, confronted with the dark on all my decisions, on all my indecisions. No stronghold will you find in me, Abaddon. And then I started thinking about how I wanted to proceed, and I thought, you know what, I want to explore King Esarhaddon from the, I guess what we know as the Neo-Syrian Empire. And so, kid you not, y'all, I started researching so I could understand a little bit more about his reign and incorporate that into my poetic flow. And as I started reading about him, I discovered that there are things about his reign and even his geographical location, which is Harran, Harran, in Turkey. And then I got to zooming in on it a little bit more, and for many reasons, which I'm not going to go into right now, Turkey has become integral to my formation as a person. I have found resonance, make sure nobody thinks I'm saying resonance, which, God willing, one day it will be. But the history, specifically the spiritual religious history of that country, I'm just going to say it like this: it plays into my purpose. And so I really wasn't, I'm not wide awake yet, right, as I'm putting all this stuff together. And I just thought, okay, he actually reigned like 2 hours from, one city in specific in Turkey that, I have a point of fascination with. And so I just noticed all of these synchronicities. But I just thought, at 4:30 a.m., I did not think I was waking up to yet another profound mystical experience. But I did. And I want to share it because it gives me the opportunity to yet again present myself as I really am to the world via the platform of social media. And it gives me the opportunity to really, really, really drive home the point that we as humans, regardless of how pious we are, regardless of any religious or non-religious affiliation, because there are atheists who feel superior to religious people by virtue of not having any ascription to a God. And that's not true, you know. We are all equal parts dark and light, and that is exactly what we need to expect from the people in our lives. We don't need to put people on pedestals, and we don't need to demonize them, because we are equal parts dark and light. We will fluctuate between operating in more light than darkness and vice versa, and that is normal. That is okay. It should be that way, because what it does is it gives us the opportunity to sharpen our own skills of empathy, deep listening, compassion, selflessness. Unless we have imperfect dark people in our lives, in our own life, we will not have those 4 very important qualities developed in our lives, and those qualities are necessary for quality of life and for the survival and perpetuation of humanity, of the planet Earth. Okay? We have come to a place in society. Here's a good example. I was listening to a spiritual teacher on YouTube, and she was talking about how, as she has shared and been vulnerable and authentic about her own journey, what she had going on in her life was she was an athlete, okay? She was very athletic, was constantly participating in athletic events. She also participated in fashion as a model. And she, also had these, I guess, spiritual truths and lessons that she was learning that she wanted to share. But she was also undergoing and in an abusive situation, one that would shatter people to the point that they couldn't come back from, okay? But because she revealed the time period in her life that these abusive events took place, people started comparing her timelines and saying things like, okay, but you were modeling or you were participating in this sporting event, but you were being abused at the same time. And so what happens is people started picking her apart, trying to, gotcha, we don't believe you. You look so happy. You were doing this sporting event. You were doing this modeling event. You were teaching. But at the same time, you had this going on. That's not how someone who's being abused would act. And so they pick apart her timelines, and her message ends up being lost. The content of her purpose ends up being lost because people were getting hung up and wanting her to be a one-dimensional human, which is unrealistic. None of us are one-dimensional. We never will be. We never have been. And so I just want people to understand, when you see me, I'm just going to bring this down to a very small point. but I hope that you will apply it broadly to everyone, whether it is your sibling or whether it is a celebrity that you've never spoken to that doesn't even know you exist. I want you to apply this principle. We are so multi-dimensional, okay? And it is entirely possible, and it happens all the time, where we have light and dark going on in our lives at the same time. And just because we are not presenting all of those things in one snapshot doesn't mean that they're not existing. And it is a disservice to your mental health. It is a disservice to humanity at large to be so shallow and lack such circumspection that you would even for a moment think that someone, that would be impossible, that would not be a thing. You know what I mean? And so her greatest regret has been that in an effort to lend credibility to her teaching by talking about her trauma, she opened herself up to a pithy, petty, pathetic scrutiny where all people wanted to do was pick apart and, play detective to try to catch her in some sort of a exaggeration or untruth or lie about her experiences. And so her message, her content has been greatly eclipsed, and the invaluable messages that she carries to transform humanity get lost in nitpicking over something that doesn't even matter. As far as, what does it matter if someone can't figure out that we are so multidimensional, and our lives are multidimensional, multifaceted, that, what they wanted to do was pick apart her timeline rather than look at the message that she carries and allow it to benefit them in some way. And so anyway, that's just kind of where I'm at, and I wanted to share that. I'm 52 minutes in. I really honestly thought this would be 15 minutes, so I'm not gonna keep you. I'm gonna go ahead and upload this too, because that contemplates my YouTube channel. So yeah, anyway, I hope you'll like, subscribe, share, and I hope that you will find something beneficial. I hope this will help you be a better human. I hope this will help you know how to understand me if you're someone who's close in my life, and better serve and better understand the people in the world around you. All right. Okay, so I'm going to get back to S.R. Haddon and Abaddon. I'm going to write some poetry, and then I'm going to conk back out for just a little bit. I've had like 3 or 4 hours of sleep, which is pretty good for me. But I'd like to get in at least another 1 or 2 before I start the day and go into career mode. All right. I appreciate you guys, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.